As we all know, Tesla has built the world's most valuable car company without spending much of anything on advertising. Of course, Elon Musk was the ultimate marketing machine. Every post, every launch, every global headline. But in 2025, that magic has faded somewhat. Sales are plateauing, and I believe that it's time for Tesla to do something it's never done before, actually advertise. I know many of you don't agree with me, but I think I can prove my case. So let's take a look. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. So this whole thing started from a post from a couple of days ago. I was driving a Toyota Corolla around Las Vegas doing my little day of travel and stuff. If you haven't seen that video, definitely check it out up here. Anyway, I said driving anything but a Tesla is downright excruciating, and you can see that I actually got about 54,000 views of that post. And of course, 200 replies to it, which is even more important. Most people, of course, agree, and then there are some people who are like, a Tesla can't possibly be any better than anything else, which made me think about this. You know, you need to advertise. I know you don't want to, but you really need to. People don't know what they're missing if you don't tell them. That's the basic point of this. I'm not talking about fluff advertising, but informational advertising. And I think that Tesla really needs to do it. And I honestly think that Tesla needs to recreate their PR department. They need to create a marketing department, and they need to go full bore into advertising because their company just is at a point where it needs that. Okay, so first things first, Tesla, of course, has existed up till now without advertising, or not much at all. They've spent a little bit of advertising recently, but they haven't really gone full bore like we think about with other car companies and things. So of course, Tesla's word of mouth model was what built the brand from nothing up till where it is today. And of course, that involved viral launches, Elon Musk's social media, happy owners like us, etc., right? You know, so that's the kind of thing. You don't need a PR department when you're working like that and you're a startup business and you're relatively small in terms of the number of sales that you're getting every year. So for reference, Tesla spent basically nothing on advertising up until about 2023, and they spent somewhere around $10 million in 2023, 2024. So it's very, very small. Competitors like Ford, Toyota, GM, they spend billions. Ford spent $2.3 billion in advertising in 2023, and I'm not suggesting that Tesla spend $2.3 billion on advertising. There is a middle ground, but these other car companies spend a lot of money to get mindshare from the consumer. So of course, for the longest time, Elon Musk was Tesla's secret weapon. Basically, he would just go out and say something or post something, and you'd get a whole bunch of response to it. Take Tesla's launch of the Cybertruck, for example. That was a big launch of a very, very risky product in late 2019, and the video got around 146 million YouTube views and about 200,000 pre-orders within a week. So you clearly don't need to advertise in a traditional sense if you're able to create a marketing campaign like that, sort of organically, just by using Elon Musk as your front man, and he worked very, very well at that. But of course, times have changed. Elon Musk, starting in 2024, became a very politicized figure and turned off a lot of his original customers, for example. And so that sort of like pure viral attention that you would get for a Cybertruck announcement or something like that back in 2019 doesn't draw the same kind of attention anymore. And so the one-man marketing department, while it's still very, very strong, I mean, Elon is still a very, very strong voice, but he is less persuasive across the political spectrum than he used to be, so Tesla really needs another voice. And of course, Tesla has gotten to be a much, much bigger brand, right? They're selling many, many more cars, so word of mouth and everything doesn't work quite as well as it does with early adopters. So sales have softened quite substantially while electric vehicle sales are rising. Tesla sales, excluding Q3 of 2025, which is a little bit of a blip because the EV tax credit was ending in the United States, but other than that, the sales have been relatively flat, while sales around the world of electric vehicles have been rising steadily. So competition is definitely heating up, and the incentives, like in the United States, are fading out. And so you can see sales have either stayed flat or even gone down in a lot of countries around the globe. And of course, that has a huge effect on Tesla's revenues, their ability to make cars at scale, which is how you make money and remain profitable and everything. So Tesla is in a little bit of a pickle. I know that they're trying to get to fully autonomous driving, but that is going to take time, especially globally. Even in the United States, they're still only in 2 markets at this point, and I know they're planning on expanding rapidly, but it's going to take years for them to roll out this robo-taxi vision that they have, which means in the meantime, they still need to be able to sell cars to people because that's how you make money while you roll out this autonomous future. And of course, the final piece of this puzzle is that everybody else advertises. Even new startups like Rivian and such, I see their advertising all the time, and I've seen their cars in a couple of movies recently even. So Rivian, even as a startup with relatively small amounts of money and relatively small sales, is advertising a lot. And then of course, you've got all of the big players. They all advertise a lot. They spend billions of dollars advertising. So advertising is sort of table stakes, which makes sense from coming from Las Vegas. If you don't advertise, you fall behind by default because everybody else is doing it. And when I say everybody else advertises, it's actually rather shocking. The auto industry in 2024 in the United States alone spent somewhere between 18 and $21 billion on advertising. That is massive. If you ever watch the Super Bowl or the World Series or any major sporting event, Monday Night Football, whatever, whenever you watch those high value shows, you inevitably will see auto advertising. It's just, again, it's table stakes. And so by default, by not advertising, Tesla puts themselves in a worse position. So I know the counter argument to this is that advertising is awful, all of that kind of stuff, and also ads don't work, they're just noise, all of that. But advertising, actually, there's a lot of reason why people advertise, and these companies don't spend billions of dollars for nothing. I know you might argue they don't get a full value out of it, but they definitely get some value. The biggest thing that you get is long-term mind share. So it's not like you can do one ad for Tide or something like that, for the detergent Tide. If you do one ad, people won't care. But if you're inundating the right market, for example, soap operas and things like that back in the day, you get people who are doing laundry all day, you get that kind of a market, you advertise into that market just constantly. So they're seeing it constantly. Then when you go to the store, you're like, oh yeah, I'll spend an extra $1 to get Tide, as opposed to this generic brand laundry detergent, because I've seen so much advertisement about it. So that long-term mind share, that's what's really, really important. And research has shown that if people see a lot of ads from a particular company, their perception of the quality, the value, the satisfaction of the product goes up. And that's just, very generic sort of products. Tesla is clearly not a generic product. It's an amazing product, and they can easily sell it with advertising. But even with something as mundane as laundry detergent or sandwiches or something, I'm thinking of Chick-fil-A because they have a very good advertising campaign right now. People talk about their sandwiches, and you got the real customers talking about it or real employees talking about it, that kind of a thing. You get that sort of personal connection, and you're basically just selling chicken sandwiches, which are just like whatever. But anyway, that advertising is really important because it puts these companies front of mind to the consumer when they're thinking, I need to buy laundry detergent, I need to buy a sandwich or something, I'm hungry, whatever. You have a lot of different choices of where you can go, and so they want to make sure that you're thinking of them first. And so it's very cumulative. Advertising is not a sprint, it's a marathon, and you need to do it for years. But if you do that, consistent ad exposure accounts for somewhere around 60% of sales elasticity. In other words, people will spend more money in order to buy the brand that they're familiar with. And another really interesting fact that I dug up as I was researching this, there's what's called advertising recall loss, which is about 20% per quarter. So in other words, if you advertise up to the end of 2025 and then stop, the consumers will lose about 20% recall per 3 months after that. So that actually reinforces that constant presence. You need to always be out there in front of the consumer. And another interesting fact that I dug up is that for differentiated products like Tesla, which is significantly different than a traditional ICE car, repeated messaging actually yields about 25 to 40% sales lift, in other words, versus not doing it, versus 10% sales lift for commodities like laundry detergent. So advertising for a differentiated product like a Tesla can be much more effective than for commodity type products. And then another interesting fact I found was that 95% of car shoppers actually start online. So that makes perfect sense, right? I mean, it's very reasonable. What you do is you're like, okay, I need a new car and I need a sedan and I need it to have this kind of gas mileage or whatever. So you go online first and you're like, blah, 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 I need this. Or maybe you're just brand loyal and you're like, I want a Toyota or something. But you start looking around online, you maybe get a comparison of a few different cars, you target the car you want, and then you start drilling down and you see how much it'll cost, and then you probably contact the dealership or something. That would be sort of a traditional way of doing this sort of thing. And targeted advertising right at the beginning of that process, if somebody's like, I need a new car or I need a new Toyota, if Tesla can target advertising right there and come in and say, hey, why not look at a Tesla instead? These are the 5 reasons why we're better than somebody else. That can lead to a huge number of leads right from the get-go as people are actually looking to purchase this product. And given the fact that a car is a major life investment, it's not something you go out and buy once a month or something, for most people at least, that kind of advertising, that targeted advertising right at the point of sale, can be particularly effective. So of course Tesla has a lot that they can advertise. Number one, of course, is full self-driving. They really need to advertise that. Most people just have no idea. There are ad campaigns, I can think of them in my head, but there are entire ad campaigns that you can do about how amazing full self-driving is. You can tell these personal stories. You can do the whole tearjerker kind of advertisement, that kind of a thing. You can do facts. You can talk about the billion miles that have been driven on full self-driving, the safety record, all of that kind of stuff. You can also put people's minds at ease talking about the supercharger network and how you can drive cross country and all around the world without any problems at all because it's 99 point whatever percent uptime, all of that kind of thing. Over-the-air updates, of course, and of course the fact that in the US at least, Teslas are the #1 most American-made cars. So that is a big deal too, right? I think, you know, you hear Ford all the time, American made, even though a lot of it's made in Mexico and other countries. But Tesla can definitely advertise that, and that's the kind of feel-good thing. And you can do it in other countries too, like Germany and China, of course. But that's the feel-good thing. That's the kind of repetition of like, hey, we're the #1 most American-made car. If you want an American-made car, if you support America, that kind of thing, rah, rah, patriotism and everything, you push that sort of an angle. And then, of course, you've got safety and efficiency data, all of that kind of stuff. The 5-star crash ratings, the incredible safety that is in Teslas. Again, you can tell anecdotal stories of people whose lives have been saved by it, all that kind of stuff. These are just treasure troves for marketing and for advertising. So speaking of campaigns, how about a few campaign ideas? #1, like I've been talking about previously, is real owners, real stories, testimonials. It produces that one-to-one human connection, that really amazing thing, right? We could even start with my post there. I mean, I'm not saying that's the best post in the world, but driving the Toyota Corolla around here was excruciating. It was a terrible experience. You don't want to go back once you own a Tesla. Perhaps the campaign tag would be, once you go Tesla, you never go back, or something like that. It might be a little bit dangerous because I know that there's other things that have been said about that. But anyway, the idea that once you own a Tesla, you don't want to own anything else because it's such a good car. That's a really good campaign. You could do a lot of advertising just on that alone. Then, of course, you can do Tesla versus the rest campaigns with quick clips of side-by-side comparisons of range, charging networks, safety ratings. You could tag it with like, see the difference, feel the future, something along those lines, right? Something very exciting. Just little quick 15 or 30-second advertisements that you can just knock out quick. People can see them. You put your tagline at the end, you put the Tesla T at the end, that kind of a thing. You know, you just hit them quick with some facts, just a couple for each one so that people can digest them. And of course, instead of comparison, you could just do the facts things, right? I know Elon Musk is particularly fond of this, but 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds, 1,000+ superchargers, built in America, built in Germany, built in China, depending on where you're doing the advertising, all that kind of a thing. And you can make just the facts and the comparison things, those could be those targeted advertisements that you could put when somebody starts to do a search online for a car. You put those advertisements up there. If somebody's searching for a Toyota RAV4 or something, you could be like, hey, what about a Model Y versus a RAV4? Look at the comparisons between these two things, right? That's the kind of advertising that just like right at the nick of time, you can catch a person and make them think twice and maybe go for a test drive. Once they do that, they're probably going to be hooked. And then, of course, there's the kind of big ticket sort of thing, the rah-rah America sort of thing, right? You could say most American car by a US company. And then in Germany, it could be like German precision meets Tesla innovation. And of course, in China, you can go big for there too, made in Shanghai for China, right? So it's like a big deal for that. So these are more global sorts of things. They're feel good. They're kind of along the line of the customer's testimonials. They're not particularly targeted, but they're broad-based, and you just keep hitting people with it over and over again to just remind them of the fact that Tesla is a fantastic car. And then one differentiator about how Tesla could work is that they're so good with data, they could measure ROI on these advertisements and everything very, very rapidly. They could probably develop the ability to look at this information almost in real time and adjust advertising based on that. So instead of just having one car ad that you produce and make it run for like a month or something, and you just keep pushing the same ad over and over again, it could be tweaked constantly to be able to make it better and better, and to make it particularly targeted for Omaha, Nebraska versus New Jersey or something, you know, right? So you can hyper localize it to different markets, and Tesla is perfectly adapted to do that, especially if they do all of this in-house instead of hiring an external team, which I would think that they would probably want to do. So of course, Tesla doesn't fully want to go down the road of a lot of these other automakers. I think what you want to do is make sure the messaging is authentic. You don't get the empty hype kind of thing. You want to be truthful about the capabilities of the car and the comparisons and everything, but that's relatively easy to do because Tesla is such a great car. So Tesla, of course, has built their entire empire without advertising, but I really believe now is the time they need to consider advertising, and they need to go 100% in on advertising. They don't want to just put their feet in just a little bit. You want to go hardcore, and you want to make sure that people know about your brand, because Tesla has grown grown to that size, and the world has become complex enough that they really need to do advertising. And I'll end by saying this: there is always a story to tell. The media will tell your story if you don't tell it yourself, and the media has not been kind to Tesla over the years. So in my opinion, Tesla, by advertising, can get control of their narrative and tell the right story for their customers. Alrighty folks, that's what I've got for you today. Let me know in the comments what kind of advertising campaign you would create for Tesla, or maybe instead you think this is a terrible idea and Tesla should not spend a penny on advertising. Let me know in the comments either way. While you're down there, if you don't mind liking the video, it really helps out with YouTube's algorithm. And of course, consider subscribing for more of this kind of content, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.